Okay, this is now the 5 Minute Tarot for the 19th of December 2017. And today I'd like to look at how do you read cards for yourself? Because people want to practice and you can't always find people to practice with. So you can always practice with yourself, but people find that they're not sure if they want to do an actual reading for themselves. They're not sure if what they see is what they want to see, and it's not really true or correct, or whether what they get out of a card or out of a combination of cards is actually real. So I'd like to look at one way I think that works, that you can use to read for yourself. But at the same time, I couldn't think, it seems obvious that the thing to do is ask yes or no. But I'll get to that in a minute. So what I'm saying is, if you want to help, you can leave in the comments down below. You can tell me if you've tried to read for yourself and got confused or not being sure if it was the right answer or not. Can you tell me the question that you asked? Because I can't think of any. And that I might want to ask that would then confuse me if I got the card or a card and wasn't sure what to do with it. So if you want, you could let me know what kinds of questions you have asked or that you might ask that you might have difficulty answering. Because I think you can always ask, is it a good idea to do such and such? Let's say you're wanting to do something or you've got an idea about a relationship or a situation. If you ask, is it a good idea? Yes or no? You can then, it should be easy enough to figure out the strengths and weaknesses of the card, and then you decide. Okay, so is it a good idea to do such and such, and you get the sun upright? Then yes, it's a good idea. And then you can look at the card itself and figure out that there will be confidence and optimism, and you'll have childlike innocence, and there's a horse, so you're going to be transported or helped to get from where you are now to where it is that you want to go, right? And somebody else or something else is going to do the work. You can look at the card and depending on what the actual situation is about, you can know what the child and the horse represents, or the fact that the sun is shining. And then maybe if the sun is reversed, then yes, it's a good idea, but maybe rethink it a bit, because there might be delays or there might be little things getting in the way. But because the sun is basically a good, strong card, the answer is yes, but there's going to be one or two little glitches, rather than if you get the devil reversed, then the answer is no, it's not a good idea. You're going to get trapped, you're going to get stuck, and people are going to let you down. You're going to get sucked into something you wish you had not got into. So if you ask, is it a good idea, yes or no, and then pick a card, upright means yes, upside down means no, and then you look at the card itself to figure out why it's a good idea or why it's not a good idea, what can work, what's going to go well, or what's not going to go well, what's going to go against you if the card happens to be reversed. So it should be easy enough to figure out the strengths and weaknesses of that particular course of action and then decide whether you want to do it. So the other thing is that we should remember that we're not supposed to get carried away. And maybe that's what people do. That's why they have trouble answering your questions, because they get carried away. But let's say, should I do such and such? That's my question. And I get the Ten of Swords reversed. The fact that it's reversed means no. But you can look at the card, but you're not supposed to get carried away and think that if you do this thing, it's going to end up in absolute destruction and cataclysm, and everything, your whole world is going to fall apart. Because maybe it just means that people aren't going to be able to do what they say they'll do. Because you've got the person lying face down with swords in his back. So maybe you're going to be stabbed in the back, which, depending on the circumstances, can mean that people deliberately mislead you to get you involved, and then they cold-heartedly double-cross you. That's one possible meaning of the Ten of Swords. But it might be that people want to help you, and they say they're going to do something, but they end up not being able to do it. Not because they're trying to deliberately cause you problems, but just because of the way things work. They may have meant it or only half meant it when they promised to do something. So the Ten of Swords reversed can mean that people will stab you in the back, but it's just the way things are. It doesn't mean that they hate you, they're trying to undermine you, they're trying to double cross you, and so on. So the degree of difficulty, we could say, doesn't have to be 10 out of 10, really, really bad, really, really difficult. It might simply be the tarot's way of telling you, or your way of telling you, watch out, because it's not going to work out the way you want, let's say, because it's a 10 of Swords. So when it comes to reading for yourself, it's important to know what you're thinking and what kind of thinking you're doing. So let's say when you pick the card, I'm going to stick with one card, or maybe you've got 3 cards or whatever you happen to do. Are you thinking that the answer is the final outcome or the ultimate answer? Because should I do such and such, or is this a good idea? The final outcome, the end result, can be really far away in time. So it's hard to, this is why I asked for what are your questions that you had difficulty answering. Because it may be that if your question involves something that's going to take 6 months or a year to complete, and you want to know, is it a good idea? What's the final outcome going to be? If you're talking about something that's 6 months from now or a year from now, it's hard to know if intermediate steps or little things that you do next week or next month, if they're going to be productive or if they're going to reverse progress. So it's important to know how you're thinking and what kind of thinking you're doing, partly because an end or the end point that you might be thinking of isn't automatically the end and a full stop. It's a bit like if you're fighting in a war, and let's say you win the war, then you have to figure out how you're going to win the peace, right? So it's not like you win the war, there's an end, and everybody goes home, because life goes on beyond that point. And it can be because you won the battle, because you won the war, you're now in control, and it's up to you to decide, okay, what next, or what now, or how are we going to live the peace, or how are we going to win the peace? What are we going to do so that we don't slip back into the old situation that caused the war in the first place, as an example. So if you're thinking, again, depending on what your question is, you may be thinking that you want to know the final outcome, but because the final outcome can be 6 months or a year away, it can be difficult to know whether something next month or 2 months from now is actually good or bad, because things can change. So you might have a bad situation that because you solved a bad situation, you really turn it into a strength, and that makes you capable of winning the battle, let's say, or winning the war, or having the outcome that you want. Something that is easy and that flows well might make you lackadaisical or might make you lazy, so that you have short-term success, so you don't bother working away at it or making sure that things are actually stable or that things are solid. So the end result ends up being kind of messy. And it's because you had things easy in the short term, so you weren't motivated to actually keep working at it so that the long-term result is good. Because when you're asking a question, it's so hard, it's so easy to nowadays with entertainment, that you watch a TV show and it's finished in an hour. or you watch some kind of sports event and it's finished after 2 hours and everybody goes home and that's the end. So we can think that we do things and there's an automatic end point. But with life and living and people and relationships and how we're going to spend the rest of our life, it's not like there's an end. But it's easy to turn a card and want information about the final outcome or the end result, but maybe we can't have it. So in the last 3 or 4 videos, I've talked about strategy. And so what I'm going to tell you now about reading for yourself, it ties in with the idea of strategy. And the next video is going to be more about the strategy notebook that I suggested that we should all be keeping. So it's important to remember, and I'd just like to say this again, that as Eisenhower said, plans are useless, but planning is essential. So this is because the strategy that we make use of, or the strategy that we enact, what we actually do depends on the problem. And I'm thinking of wartime, and let's say you've got a village over there, and it's kind of vulnerable to the enemy. So you have to. This strategy comes from the Greek, the art of the general, and it's art. So it's talking about arranging things harmoniously. So if you've got a village over there that's undefended, and it's an easy prey for the enemy, and it's vulnerable to the enemy, what do? Do you send troops to protect it, or do you let it get captured by the enemy because it'll take some of their resources, which means they can't use their resources against you over there, where maybe it's more important. So you have to look at that village or that town and decide how important it is. How does it fit into your plan? How does it fit into the overall plan that you've got for running the war? So when it comes to when it comes to reading for ourselves, I think it's better to we ought to want to know not so much the outcome, but how to make the situation better, or what would be a step in the right direction. Because if you think about final outcomes, you're going to get confused because you're not sure how the cards tie in with the final outcome. So you can be unsure whether you should do this or do that. But you can know how to make it better based on your current understanding of the problem. So given the situation that you're asking about, you know what better looks like. Even if you're not sure if or how a better situation fits in with the overall desired outcome, the final outcome. But if you can content yourself with making things a bit better, then you know it can be done, and you know what to do and how to go about doing it. You know how to bring about some improvement that's going to take you in the direction in which you want to go. One small step isn't going to maybe take you, but if you think about it, multiple small steps will take you in the direction of the final outcome. And then there's going to come a point where one small step is the last step to get you to where it is that you want to go. So don't discount the value of small improvements or small steps. You can know what to do that's going to make things better. So what you do is you think about, okay, you've got a situation. I'm going to read for myself. I pick a card, and I want to know what is going to make the situation better, or what can I do that's going to bring about an improvement. And then you look at the card and you figure out what it's telling you. If you cooperate with it, then things are going to be a little bit better. So you pick a card, you think about what to do, and then you relax. And then once you've done what that first card suggests or indicates, once you've done it and it's in place, you do it again and you make something else better. And this is how a general wins a war, by multiple little decisions moving everything forward a little bit at a time, rather than thinking about the final outcome. Because usually you can't know what the final outcome looks like, because there are other people involved and you don't know how they're going to act or react or handle or cooperate with the final outcome that you're looking for. So a general kind of wants to make things a little bit better in all these different areas, one step at a time. He doesn't bother panicking. You know, a problem is just one of many situations that need to be addressed, or that need to be fixed or changed or made better or made to work more efficiently or effectively, or whatever you're dealing with, whatever makes sense depending on the question that you're dealing with. And I think it's important to remember that even if you don't, you're anxious or worried about something, or you're in a bad situation, even if you don't see it, remember this idea of wholeness and unity that is harmonious. And unity is everything. And we, whether we accept it or not, we're part of everything. And within everything, there is harmony. So even if you look at your current situation, remembering this unity in its reflection, and problems take place in the reflection, not in the actual wholeness, which is the reason for reminding yourself that there is unity and harmony, and thinking about what harmony looks like, what it means. So, because there is wholeness, we are within the harmony of unity or wholeness. And that's where we're always working from. So what we produce, the ideas we come up with, are actually of the nature of harmony, in the same way that a ray of sunshine shares the qualities of the sun, even though it's not the whole sun. So if you're about to do a reading for yourself, if you take the time to start from harmony or unity and put your mind and your thinking and your ideas into a suitable shape that relates in some way to the harmonious unity, then what you come up with, or what you decide, or what you imagine, will be a harmonious form. And that's the form that life itself, with all its power, is going to take. And you don't have to do anything to make it come about. Okay, that was it for today. So I'm thinking that I'd like to do more about the strategy thing. And I think we have to look at a book. I mean, create a book, because then you can go off at tangents and have subheadings and so on. Videos are okay to be like for immediate stuff, immediate impact. But I'm thinking that I'd like to write a book about this and incorporate bits from over here and bits from over here and put it all in the same area. And also deal with objections that people might have, and maybe say something extra that makes the general idea more clear. Because I'm talking about unity and its reflection, but this is what I've arrived at, the situation I've arrived at after years of reading here and there and trying different things and so on. I know that I'm leaving out a lot, and I wouldn't mind filling in the blanks, so to speak. Only because you look around and it's a mess, and it ought not to be a mess, and we can do something about it. Maybe only one person at a time, but nevertheless, it all adds up. Okay, I'll try and do something in the next couple of days about more on unity and harmony. So thanks for watching, and if you have comments or questions, leave them down below. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.